And then we also operate on a lot of
It's 2.4 meters like wide.
yeah, 2.4 meters in diameter.
That's very big.
Yeah, this one, yeah, these ones are not that big.
Yeah.
This one's like 6.5 meters. It's huge. So this is Caleb. This is what usually astronomers or any like professional people do. You think that they're working on something like cool, but like they just stare at the monitor. Yeah. and so like when people ask me what do you do for a living, especially when I get on a plane, I don't tell them I'm an astronomer because they're gonna like bother me for the whole time. So I just say, well, I answer emails. Yes, hello. My name is Sangmo Tony Sohn. Korean, it's Son Sangmo. And I'm a principal staff scientist working at the Space Telescope Science Institute. And to give a little bit of background about our institute, like we call it STSCI in short. And this is an institute that actually operates the space telescopes that were made by NASA, basically. So like the first space telescope we actually operated was the Hubble Space Telescope, which was launched in 1991. And now we are also operating the James Webb Space Telescope, which was launched in December 2021. So I'm part of the James Webb Space Telescope wavefront team, or it's also called the telescope team. So my responsibilities are to keep the pointing performance, like pointing for the telescope means where you want to see versus where the telescope is actually looking at. So that's kind of a very important aspect of the telescope, because we're looking at a very tiny part of the sky. It's really important to make sure that the telescope is pointing at the right area in the sky. So I'm part of that team, and I'm responsible for the pointing performance. For my work, I work on those kind of things for half of my time. The other half of my time, I actually work on do my own research on astronomy. So for the astronomy, I basically do research on how galaxies form and evolve through measuring their kinematics, like how they move around in space over time. So that's what I do. Even, I don't know, like my memory goes back to maybe like when I was 6 or 7 years old. I kind of thought, hey, the space is, I think a lot of kids are like that too, but when I was a small child, like I looked at the sky, when I saw the stars, I was always mesmerized. Looked at the moon, like, used my binoculars to look at the moon and like, wow, like how could that be in space? And I wish I could go there. It all started from there. And then I think, so I liked the movie Star Wars, and that kind of inspired me to maybe like, be more interested in space. And then when I was a student in high school, I kind of like, maybe that was the kind of like final decision. Hey, I really want to pursue a career doing this. Even back then when I was a student, I think a lot of people, especially where I grew up in Korea, they were kind of a little bit questioning, can you actually make a living out of that, doing like the things you like and you want to do. So, but I still like kind of thought to myself, I'm going to do that no matter what. So I think that's kind of that's what kept me going on. And then I eventually went to a college majoring in astronomy in Yonsei University in Korea. And then I came to the U.S. University of Virginia for doing my PhD studies, and I got a degree in astronomy, and that's how my astronomy career started. And then after that, I guess I didn't work with space telescopes from the beginning, but as I actually worked more and more for doing astronomy, I actually like became more interested in actually working with the space telescope. So I guess that's why I actually started working here in STSCI. So I started working from year 2009, and I'm still here. So yeah, I guess this is the place I like. It's my destiny, and yeah. I think, and it's always hard to answer that question. But I think I think the most important aspect is okay, like if you're interested in astronomy or like space, studying astronomy and space is a very important thing. First of all, but I think what's more important maybe is like your imagination. So, in that respect, I think watching a lot of like science fiction movies and reading a lot of science fiction books. I enjoy reading science fiction books even now, like a lot. So I think those kind of keep your interest and imaginations going on, and eventually that will, there are some times when you're going to be a little bit having a hard time in your life, and maybe like maybe you're questioning like, did I choose the right field, even if you actually started your career in astronomy or like space related. But I think that's those. Keeping your interest and imagination is the most important thing to kind of motivate yourself to stay in this field. Yeah, so that's my advice. In terms of the missions, I think we heard this from JPL actually, but like when they say deep space, anything beyond the Earth's the Earth orbit is like defined as deep space. But in astronomy, like where in my field, when you say like deep space or like distant universe, that's like way beyond that, like way beyond our solar system. And I guess like other galaxies, and some people. I personally don't work on. I personally work on a very close galaxies in astronomy standards, but some people work on like galaxies so distant that they are actually it's like they actually have to use the unit like light years, like 13.8 billion light years before like galaxies were first born. And James Webb telescope is actually looking at those galaxies, studying the details, how the universe was born, and then how they actually evolved to become the galaxies like this, like our galaxy, which our Earth resides on. So yeah, those kind of things. So that's basically astronomy. Yeah. The Hubble Space Telescope is a telescope that's orbiting around the Earth 7.5 times a day. Actually, like more than that, it's like 16 times a day. So anyway, it's a orbit that's the orbital height is about like 530 kilometers or something. And it orbits around the Earth, and then it points at some celestial objects for at most like 2,000 seconds or something like that. So it's not actually not a long time. So but Hubble Space Telescope is actually focused on observing the ultraviolet and optical lights. So when you say optical lights, it's exactly the lights our human eyes can see. Ultraviolet, on the other hand, is a shorter wavelength where like it actually is responsible for our like the suntan and everything. But like it's actually the telescope was built for observing those. James Webb Telescope, on the other hand, was built to observe the infrared universe, like much longer wavelengths, so lower temperatures. So that's why they actually designed it to not orbit around the Earth, because the Earth is too warm. But they had to actually launch the telescope all the way to about 1 million miles away from Earth. So that's about like 4 times the distance between the Earth and the Moon. It's called a second Lagrange point. So it's actually orbiting around from there. So these two telescopes are two different beasts, I would say, like complete, and the operations therefore are very different. Whereas Hubble Space Telescope, you can actually almost contact in real time. But like James Webb Space Telescope, like the light takes about like 5 seconds to go back and forth. So the signal is that basically. So you can't do anything in real time in it for the operations. And so what was your question like about how? So usually, yeah, the fainter the objects are, the longer you have to actually take an exposure of that with the telescope of that object. So to detect the very faint light coming from those galaxies or stars, basically, and because like conceptually it's like collecting the rain like, the longer you actually collect the rain using a pan, then you get more water in the pan, right? Just like that, when you expose the telescope, like when you keep the telescope pointed at like one part and take a picture for so long, then you're collecting all the photons coming from the very faint stars, very faint galaxies, and eventually like the galaxies that were like born just after the universe itself was born. You can actually collect the lights coming from there and then study them. So that's why.
아,
저 뒤쪽에도 있긴 한데 저기는 이제 다른 사람들만 접근할 수 있게.
오케이. 나사 로그가 너무 멋있어요. 그렇죠.
예,
색깔도.
그렇죠. Because that's it's kind of weaved.
Wow.
And so this conference room was where all the things happened about making decisions whether that's a small model. This is always required because sometimes you have to visualize how the telescope is. So what is the telescope doing now? Like people like when they actually have a meeting.
3D.
Yeah. So you can just put it in the pocket.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna check it. So, yeah, it's 3D printed model. And then. So,
Oh, some people working or something?
yeah, that's the Mission Operations Center.
Oh.
One out of only like 12 or 13 proposals actually get accepted. So it's a very, very competitive system. But still, like the astronomers review it, and then you get the time. Then you'll be able to like observe your own object, and they actually you get the data, all the calibrated data from our institute, and then you get sent those data.